Hello everyone, my name is Anastasia, or just Nastya for short, and welcome to this channel. In this video I wanted to share my experience of learning foreign languages. I am a fluent speaker of 3 languages, Russian, English and French. I can speak a little bit of Spanish and I can understand a little bit of written Italian. And this video is about how I learn the languages, what conclusions I have, what tips and tricks I might have for those people who are learning languages and want to become fluent. Let's dive right into it. I think there's this idea that you need to start learning languages pretty early. If you start when it's too late, you're never gonna be a fluent speaker of a language, and I think it is so not true. And I had to move. While I think it is true if we're speaking about pronunciation, it is easier to get native-like, flawless pronunciation if you start learning the language from your childhood, but a language is not all about phonetics. It is more than that, and I even think it is easier to learn a language from vocabulary perspective, from grammar perspective, when you are an adult. I started learning languages pretty late, when I was maybe 14 years old. At that point, well, I already had French classes at school, 2 hours a week, but I hated French till one day when I don't know, I changed my mind. I like the pronunciation. Even now, I think it is one of the most beautiful languages. Well, at the very least for me. I just wanted to learn it. It was fun to learn it. And my school was just a regular school, and I didn't have any money to afford a tutor or teacher, so I started learning myself. I started learning with movies, with books. I bought a Harry Potter book to read in French, and I didn't have a lot of money, so even buying that one Harry Potter book was kind of a big deal for me. It was quite expensive, but also I bought one French specific book to learn a language. It was very old. It was like from Soviet years or something like that. It was old, but that was the only one book that I had, and I learned French with that book. Then I went to Europe, and I found a couple of French friends. I got this connection that helped me a lot, and I was basically learning on the go. It was quite frustrating at the beginning because I had to just copy and paste my friends' messages to Google Translator and type Russian text in the translator to convert it to French and send it to my friends because, well, my level wasn't good enough to have a real conversation with native speakers. Having them and having the opportunity to speak the language, to talk to people and use the language to get to know people was quite, I don't know, it was fun. I didn't feel like I was actually learning. I passed the French state exam at the end of the high school, and I got good enough results to get a free education in the best linguistic university in Russia. It sounds like I'm flexing, but I'm not. It's just to say you can learn it all on your own. To conclude a little bit this part of me learning French language on my own for 3 years, I think one of the major part for me was I started learning through something I enjoy, and I always recommend you or anyone else to do the same. Learn it with your favorite songs or find favorite songs. Learn with movies, with books, with TV series, podcasts, YouTube videos. Ideally to learn with something you already know. Like I bought the Harry Potter book because I already knew the plot. I already read it and watched it in Russian, and I think it's easier to be fully concentrated on the language when you read something you already know. That's something I always recommend. Why I think it is important, of course, learning a language may not be always fun. Sometimes you might need to look into some grammar rules to clarify some things, but I feel like if at least half of it is fun, it's just easier to keep going, to be consistent, and consistency is the key. Another thing is to be exposed to the language as much as you can, and actually the first point of learning through your hobbies and favorite things is something that also helps you to be exposed to the language as much as you can, so it's kind of connected. Listen, especially it is important if you are a beginner, listen as much as you can if you do not understand it, because your ears need to get used to the music, to the melody of the language, to how it sounds. I always recommend to listen to the radio, podcast, or I don't know, any other audio programs that you might find. But my favorite way to learn French was with songs. I learned so much with Edith Piaf, Charles Aznavour, Yves Montand. I think songs are the easiest way to get exposed to the language, and by exposed, I mean not being actively learning, without taking notes or looking up grammar rules. But if you want, you can use songs for these purposes, and that's exactly what I did. I liked to translate, then take notes about new vocabulary or grammar structure, and then I just sang this song for maybe I don't know how many times, a lot of times, and I always felt like I was learning so much, especially vocabulary, without trying to memorize it. Another point, I know it is hard, but find friends, someone to talk to, maybe not necessarily natives, but just someone who also learns this language so you can practice together. The easiest thing I think is to start messaging in that language because, well, definitely maybe it does not help you develop the speaking skill itself, but well, it will help you. But that depends actually. Every time I wrote the messages, I would just also speak out loud the message itself, and I would pretend like I'm actually speaking it without even looking at the text, but like trying to memorize and mimicking and imagining conversations. I know it's weird and not everyone wants to do this, but just a suggestion. But finding friends, having some kind of personal connection to the culture and language was also something crucial. I just want to show you around actually. Let's take a break. I like this wall, even if the plants are not real, which is sad a little bit, but I think it is cute. This is a small like lounge area in my building, available to every resident here. And I like it. It has kitchen, some fake plants, some dining area. You can chill there and have parties, which I never do. Take me to the ruins, aquifers and springs, baby ferns uncurling. Let's get back to my favorite area, plants area. We had really intense program of French, of our first foreign language. First 3 to 5 months we spent just improving our pronunciation, learning phonetics. And then we had a lot of different courses, like some practical ones where we spoke or learned grammar, did a lot of exercises, but also some of them were more theoretical because I went to a linguistics department, which is science, and you need to learn scientific things, which I didn't enjoy as much, honestly, because my goal wasn't to become a linguist, but to learn languages, but it was fine. And I started learning English. I think that was the freshman year, the middle of it, so maybe in winter. And finally, I was very happy about starting to learn English. That was something I always wanted to do, but I never got the chance, or I just never really did anything about this. And I'll tell you this, I think learning English turned out to be easier. For one, it's just some things in the language are easier, like there is no gender category for objects, and in French I was always confused about where to say la or le, like male, female, or just the articles. I think the articles are always hard for any Russian speaker, but I feel like in English they are still a little bit easier because there are less of them. So that's one thing. Another thing is that it is just easier to integrate English into your life. There are so many things you can learn the language with, so much material, like so many TV series, movies. I think it is very helpful to integrate a language into your lifestyle on different levels. So as I mentioned, again and again, learn through something you enjoy so you don't even feel like you're learning. Also, you can do a lot of other simple and small things in a language you're trying to learn, like just start writing your to-do list in that language, or start creating shopping lists. I got a lot of speaking practice at university because we had a lot of classes where we spoke. We had even dedicated classes to discuss things, and that was very helpful. But I didn't really use French or English in real life, like speaking with natives or just speaking with someone in the language uh, outside of school setting. The first time I did was when I was talking to my French friend via the phone, and that was maybe my second year in university, and I was super nervous. One thing is to talk to your fellow students when teacher is around, when you have your notes, and when you speak about a particular topic to practice the vocabulary. But another thing is to with come up with your speech on the go when you just speak about random things. And our conversations with my French friends were always interesting. We spoke about everything and anything, and it was definitely stressful for me to be able to discuss all those interesting topics in French without, like in real life setting, without anything, like any translator or any dictionary, anything. And then I think at the end of my second year, that summer I went to, that was the spring of 2017 that I went to Latvia with my French friends. So that was the travel we did together. We went to Riga, and that was basically the first time I had to use French with them in real life, and I was so hard at the beginning, couldn't understand a word they were saying. That's because French that young adults speak is a little bit harder than just normal French that you can hear in news or in, I don't know, YouTube programs or even songs. So I heard a lot of acronyms and a lot of like le vocabulaire familier, like a lot of colloquial words that I didn't know that they didn't teach you at school, and that was so confusing. I was so upset with myself, but I learned pretty quickly with them. And that's also when I started started using English. I met another person who is now my friend as well. He's from Germany and he doesn't speak Russian, but he speaks English. So we started just communicating and speaking English together. So that was, even if he's not native, it's still useful for both for me and for him as well to practice English together while speaking. Then the same year I went to France for 3 weeks, and I spent all 3 weeks with my friends. So I was fully integrated into French life for that period of time. I found it really useful for my language skills, but it was just a lot of fun to hang out with them, to see what it is like to be a French person. And yeah, I saw Paris, I saw Nancy, which is in Lorraine, French region, and yeah, that was a lot of fun. I met a lot of people. I had to practice, I got the chance to practice French a lot. I graduated from Moscow State Linguistic University in 2019, and almost right after it, I moved to the United States. I packed my whole life into one suitcase and bought a one-way ticket, came here in Los Angeles, and I live here ever since. I work here in an American company, not as a linguist, as a software engineer, but I use English every day, obviously. And I also, I don't really use French. When I just came here, I definitely knew French was my second language. I was more confident speaking French. I knew more. I had more deeper understanding of French, practical and theoretical. English, I was more confident on that level, that I had less fear of making mistakes in English, but I really knew less vocabulary. I was less confident about my grammar. But anyways, I feel like my English became so much better now with all the practice that I got. I think I made it sound like learning a language is so easy. You just watch your favorite movies and you become fluent. It is not. I think it is an important part, though, to have fun when you learn something, but also at some point you might want to get a tutor, a teacher, go to courses. I don't think there is one way to learn a language. There are so many of them, and I think you should try as many of them as you can. And having teachers is definitely helpful if you want to learn vocabulary, grammar, become more advanced. I'm all for it. I had a lot of different teachers that helped me a lot, and I do not want to minimize their importance and their role in me speaking English today. I'd say it's also important not to get discouraged because you think your circumstances are not favorable, like if you do not live in a country where they speak it. This is definitely helpful to be surrounded by the language like that, but it is not the major factor. It is not the only factor. There are so many factors, so many variables. Just try to do what you can with what you have. Well, I feel like it was a little bit too general and disorganized. I didn't really prepare for this video. I just wanted it to be more live. But anyways, I hope that at least some of you will find it useful. And well, I think that's it for today. Subscribe to my channel, subscribe to my Instagram, and I'll catch you in my next one. Bye bye. Au revoir.